All right, welcome everybody to our workshop with Get Good with Storyline with our host, John Morley. John Morley is a instructional designer with Genetech, and he has agreed to put this workshop together for us over the next few months. So if anybody is interested in getting good with Storyline, John's going to be your person to help guide you through this. I also want to make sure that to let you know that we still host a lot of virtual events with ATD San Diego, and to continue our check on our events webpage also, and that's tdsandiego.org/events. Also keep an eye out for our president's vlog that I post to YouTube every month, where Bridget Randall will give you the updates to ATD and all the upcoming events. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to John so he can talk about Storyline with you. So thank you.
Okay, here we go. Clicking the little share the screen button, and now I'll click my title slide, and everybody should be seeing something that says variables with the ATD logo. Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate your help with this. And Tom will be checking the chat box. If you have questions as we go along, please either speak up. This is intended as an open forum. I do have a prepared presentation, but at any time you see a better way to do something or have a question about what I am doing, speak up or enter something in the chat box, and Tom will alert me to it if appropriate. This is a click along, so please have Storyline open in a separate window, or even better, in a separate monitor. And in addition to stepping you through creating something from scratch, I'll be showing some examples I've already prepared. If you want to have that open on your screen as well, that is the link that we were talking about in the chat window. Make sure that if you do want to go to that link, you download it from, it's currently in Google Drive, and you have to download it to your local computer, open it there, run it locally. It will not work if you try to run it within Google. To keep this at the right level, please let me know about how well you know Storyline. In the chat box there, on a scale of 1 to 5, enter the number of your level of expertise. 1 meaning you're relatively new to Storyline, not sure what a variable is. 5 meaning you should probably be facilitating this rather than me. So let's see if I can take a look at the chat boxes here. I have a 1, a 3, a 2, a 3, a 2.5. That's being very nuanced. Okay, a 0. Okay. Well, it looks as if most of us are kind of right in the middle here. We have got a couple people here, so I'll. In the interest of the lower numbers here, I'll go through my entire presentation here. And I'll speed it up a little bit. If you have a question about what I'm doing, please, as I said earlier, chime in. Anyone who participated in the workshop I did last September may remember we ran out of time before getting to variables. So variables is where we are taking it up today. In case you don't write computer code, variables can be compared with buckets, each of which contains a specific type of information. Then when the computer code calls on that bucket, meaning the variable, what affects the learner, the viewer experience is what's in that bucket, such as what we see on the screen. For example, customization. Is a variable could hold a learner's name. The learner types in at the beginning of the lesson, so the learner is referred to by name throughout the lesson. A category could be front office, back office, or a season of the year, so the learner self-selects what goes into the variable, and then that drives the content for the rest of the lesson. Scoring a quiz, common use of variables. Numerical variables set up, and then added to with every correct answer. So where do variables live? This will be of interest to people who are new to Storyline. If you can see up in the tippy upper right-hand corner of the screen, there's a little box with an X on it. If you click that box, you see the variables. Here are the variables I have already created for this presentation. And up here in the upper right-hand corner, you see standard toolbars here. You can click the green plus to create a new variable, you can click the pencil to edit a variable. This allows you to copy a variable and then to paste it in. And then the traditional trash can over there, you can see I copied the again variable. Trash can deletes it. Okay, so we have two types of variables. These are the variables I've created myself, and the free of charge Storyline gives you a whole bunch of built-in variables. Look at all those wonderful variables you can work with. And go back to project, and that is where variables live. We'll be exploring that a whole bunch. Now, this is what a variable looks like to the learner. As I said, it's a variable this is a variable called bucket in the user interface. What you see is to show a variable on the screen, you just type the name of the variable here and bracket it with the percentage signs going up to the upper right hand corner, and you can see this is the bucket variable. The default value for bucket variable is what's in the bucket. So when you see this for real, what you see is what's in the bucket. Now, if the learner wants to change what's in the bucket, you just enter that right here, and I'll be showing you how to do this in a little bit. And whatever you type there appears where the variable is written in. Any questions about that? We're doing okay? All right. There are three types of variables: true, false, text, and number. True, false is just a yes or no, such as answering the question, I am a human. Click true, and this is kind of what a human looks like. Click false. This is what a human doesn't look like. So you may ask, well, why bother with a variable? Why just rig this out so if you click true, you see the human thing. If you click false, you see the non-human thing. I'm glad you asked that question because once this variable is created, it's available throughout the lesson. So look what happens here. If we have selected false and click next, we see images that are specific to our non-human learner. If we go back and click true, now that variable is changed to true, and when we hit next, we see human type of images there.
That's interesting, John. What type of situations would that apply? I've never seen that before.
Oh, well, if say you have different roles looking, well, we're going to do a new hire example in just a moment. In fact, let me just go ahead and show you. First, let me show you how that works. And then we'll do a quick click along. This is a slide with 3 layers. In the lower right hand corner, we have layers, true and false here. We have several triggers that are associated with this layer. You see the first trigger, and I will open the trigger. Now, triggers can be changed right as they are in the interface here, but it's a little bit easier to see what's going on if you click the pencil up here. And a trigger asks you a minimum of 3 questions. Do what, with what, and when. So in this case, we're saying do what, adjust the variable to false. These are all the things that you can choose to do. Adjust the variable to false with what? With the variable that's called human, when the user clicks the false button. So I'll cancel out of that. And when they do that, there are three things that happen. What you just saw was setting the variable. The second trigger, I'll click the pencil to show you that. This does what? It changes the state of that human icon. Here we go with the human to hidden when the user clicks the false button. Okay, we'll cancel out of that. And then it also has to show, here we go, change the state of a robot to normal when the user clicks the false button. So again, this is how it works. Okay, true, false, true, false.
John, Kevin has a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, Kevin.
Go ahead, Kevin.
So would an effective use of these variables be kind of as an introduction for the user to adjust the difficulty level, to select their difficulty level of the training or the module that they're doing, so they can say they're beginner, intermediate, or advanced, and then that would adjust all of the slides accordingly to their selection?
Well, true and false are just two things, so it would work very well if there are just two options, but when we move on to the text variables, that would be a more appropriate use. Let's do a quick click along here, and I'll show you how this can be used. If we go back to if you can click along with me in the upper right hand corner, go to the file menu, select new, and then I will save what I've done there. And in the upper, oh, here we go. Now we have a new storyline. I'm going to double click the slide, and let's start with putting a label in here that may talk to your example. Start with the label, click the insert menu, go over here about halfway down the ribbon, click text box, click there, and ask, are you a new hire? So that's, I believe, Kevin, that's somewhat similar to what you were asking. And then we'll go over here in the upper right hand corner to click the little X thing, and let's click the green plus sign and create a variable named new hire. Type, we will select true or false, and you'll see that by default it says it is false. So click OK. We have now created a variable, and let's display that variable. I'll click the label, click it till it has a solid outline around it. Copy and paste that, Control C, Control Z, and just type in the name of that variable. A %, then new hire, and then bracket it with a %. Now let's put a couple buttons in here. Again, go to the insert menu. All the way down on the right end, you'll see interactive objects. Under input, you can select either text or number. In this case, we want text. Click and drag to create a box. Let's go down here to the bottom of the timeline and give that a meaningful name. So let's call that new hire, TRY, new hire entry. Okay. And look what happens over in the in Triggerland here. It automatically created this trigger for us, and it's saying set the variable text entry. Well, text entry is not very intuitively obvious, so let's create our own more obvious variable and just call it new hire. See, we should have, or had I already created that? Okay, new hire is already created. So let me delete the other one. Delete that and get rid of it. Okay. Now you'll see here in the trigger, we can set that right here. Set new hire to what is typed in the box. So actually, I have gotten ahead of myself here. I shouldn't be entering that. What I really want to put in here are buttons. So let's go back to the insert menu. Down here on the interactive objects, let's click button, select a button, and let's click one button that is yes.
John, while you're doing that, can I chime
Yeah.
in with a little something?
Yeah,
So,
please.
to the question, you may have different roles. You know, there may be a new hire, or in my case, I've done levels, so a new user, intermediate user, advanced user, and once they click one of those buttons, it sets the text variable. You know, I set the text variable based on which button they click, and then that variable is, I use that variable to send them different places in the course. So if they're a beginner, they may see a few more slides. Conversely, I've used this sort of trigger for retraining. When we have a certification, I have a test out option, so that if they think, oh gosh, you know, I did this 2 years ago, but I use this stuff every day. I know what I'm doing. I don't need to go through the information. I can just click to the test, and the variable controls what happens. It takes them straight to the quiz, and if they've decided they didn't want to take the quiz, then the slides stay locked until they get all the way through the content. But if they've said, you know, I'm going to skip this, skip all the way to the quiz, then I unlock those slides so that they don't have to go through, you know, if they want to click back to the slides, they can. So that's another way of using role-based variables.
Okay, and who is that talking? I don't see that clearly. Is that Jacqueline?
That was Jacqueline.
Jacqueline.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Yes.
Thank you, Jacqueline,
Yeah.
for chiming in.
Thanks, that was helpful.
Good.
Very helpful. While you were doing that, I created two buttons here, a yes button and a no button. And now I will create the trigger here to take care of the new hire variable. So click to create a new trigger. Do what? We want to adjust a variable. Select that down here. Select a variable to true, and the variable is new hire when the variable, when the user clicks the, that should be the yes button. And then we need just the mirror image of that. We will copy and then paste that and change that so that we adjust the variable to false when the user clicks the no button. So let's see how that works. We go up to the home menu, go up to preview, select this slide, and let's see how this works. Are you a new hire? We see the default is false. So if we hit yes, changes to true. If we hit new, it goes back to false. Yes, new, yes, new. So as Jacqueline was saying, once this variable is set throughout the presentation, if there's information that a new hire needs, but a continuing employee doesn't need, then that variable triggers the new hire information, and the new hire gets the entire presentation. Now, are there other examples of how a true false can be used?
Yeah, and John, it might be helpful to mention that you could do this sort of branching without using a variable if you just wanted to limit it to this slide only. So if you were just answering the question, gosh, I want to go to the next slide, or I want to skip to slide 14, then you really wouldn't need a variable. A variable is useful because it's not slide dependent, it's project dependent.
Right.
Well, once you set it, you can use it anywhere in the course, and you can change it.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to demonstrate here, where if you click that you are human and click next, you see human. And if you keep clicking through the lesson, you would see things that are appropriate to humans, where if you click I am not a human and you click next, you see a completely different presentation. So this will drive the content throughout your presentation. Any other examples of how this could work? Another example, well, I'll show it later on. Sometimes you want something to happen once for a learner, but not later on. So this variable will tell you, will tell the computer, the learner has already done this, so don't do it again. Any other examples of how this could be used?
John, Michael had a question. His question was, why wouldn't you just use branching in content versus triggers?
So that's okay. Jacqueline had a nice response, so I got that.
Okay,
Thanks.
Good to go.
Because the branch works only once. It sends you off into a direction, but there's no way for the computer to remember which one you selected as it goes down the branch. So let's go back and take a look at text. Text is, as it says, if you click things here, you'll see what's in the variable out there. It could be an orange, it may be a mango, it may be a pear. Let's take a look at how that works. It is possible to have multiple storyline files open at the same time, but you may remember when I went to this new one, it closed the other. So the only way to really get two storylines open is to go into your folder and double click the name of the other storyline file you want to have open. And then you will have, in just a moment, waiting and waiting.
I have a question. Would this variable feature be able to be used for selecting an avatar throughout a training? So if like you want to have the user select like a character that would be used throughout the training, would you make that character an avatar selection, or maybe even features of a character? They can even personalize something to look more like what they do.
Well, here are three perfectly good avatars for you. We have an apple, an orange avatar, a mango avatar, and a pear avatar. So absolutely, that this is exactly the type of application that we're looking at. Let's take a look at the code for this.
Now you would need to program that variable, or to look for that variable in each slide that avatar or that variable would appear in, correct?
Exactly. Let's go back to this slide here. Now look, completely empty slide, except we have two layers. We have a human layer and we have a robot layer. And look what happens in the base slide here. We have a trigger up here. Okay, do what? Show the layer with what? The layer called humans when the timeline starts. Now, I said that there are a minimum of three things that a trigger asks. It can ask a lot more than that with conditionals. Down here, you see a conditional that says if human value equals true, you show humans. This other trigger tells the computer, show the robot layer if a human value is false. And as Jacqueline was saying, if we use the oops, I need to actually get in and show this thing, don't I? If we have this, you can have more than yes or no. You can have different avatars for every situation here. Let's go in and take a look at how this got done. Here are the variables. We have the fruit variable. And then in the layer here, you see a fruit. The word fruit is bracketed. The name of the variable is fruit. It's bracketed by the percent signs. And then very simple triggers over here. The first trigger is do what? Adjust the variable to mango with what? The variable fruit when the user clicks the image of a mango. So any questions about how we make that happen? Are there any examples of how else this can be used other than selecting a avatar?
I was thinking of using it for questions like formative knowledge checks throughout a module. They can be adjusted based off the user's difficulty selection at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. That's very similar to the category of what season is this, what product line are you working with, that sort of situation. So a lot of uses for text.
Yeah, another possible use is if you're taking people through scenarios and you ask them, well, what would you do, A, B, or C? And then depending on what they chose, you could take them down a different branch. So again, branching.
Can you undo a choice that's already made? Like, let's say somebody makes a choice that's based on a variable, like they put their name in, but then they want to change their name later on. Is that something that you can do? Or once you select a variable, is that kind of sealed for that time that you're in the module?
Well, you're doing that right here by clicking different things here. You see the variable change. If you want to give them the opportunity, well, let's do a example here. Do a click along. Go into the field here. I'll click close the preview. Up here in the upper left-hand corner, let's hit new slide. And then let's go for a label. I'll click the insert menu. Over here about in the middle, we have a text. So I'll just type in your name. Type in your name. And then let's create a variable to hold that. We'll click on the X box here in the upper right-hand corner and just create a new, click the plus symbol, type in name, make that a text, leave it empty, click OK again. And how do we let the learner enter their name? Let's go up to the insert menu, go all the way down on the right. You see the interactive objects here. Click input, and down on the bottom you have two different choices for data entry, either text or number. We're going to select text, and we're going to click and drag here. Let's call that name entry box. I'm down on the timeline here, type in name entry box. X. All right, and let's display that on the screen. I'll click the existing label twice here so it has a solid border. Control C, Control V to copy it, and down here we will just say hello. Hello, and then bracket the variable percent name And let's go over here to the, you can see that the system has already created a trigger for you. I don't like that trigger. I think it should be a little bit different. Rather than setting the variable text entry, I would like to see it set the variable name, because that's what I've typed there. So let's see what happens here. We go up to the preview this slide. Because the default value of name is nothing, we don't see anything here. But if we click in there and type a name or type your name, then click off. Well, it's kind of small there, but it says, hello, John. And if we type anything different in there, boink. Oops, we need to click off rather than click. It says hello, whatever it is you enter in here. So to answer your question directly, at any place in the lesson, you want to have something pop up and say, change your name here, click to change your name. You can have this, let's go back to a storyline. You can have this pop up again, and anytime they type something into that, it will change whatever is in that variable. Does that respond to your question? Do you see how that works? All righty. So let's go
John's
back.
doing the hard work of trying to create all of this stuff on the fly. But what I'm thinking is that, you can really use any trigger at any time to change the value, that is the content of a variable. But you have to make that available to the user. So if they wanted to change their name at any time, you'd have to stick a button on that slide or make a lightbox slide or some sort of trigger. A trigger is the way to alter the value of a variable.
Triggers are
Or even-
wonderful.
Or
Yeah,
even
well-
just go back to that original slide that they inputted the data and change it there.
No, you don't have to go back to the slide. You create this additional functionality on any slide throughout. And as Jacqueline was saying, there are a number of ways. Look at all the different things you can do with a trigger, one of which is adjust a variable. And now look at all the different ways you can adjust a variable here. You can see, I'll select, you can set a variable, and you can these are all the names of variable. Don't have very many selections here because I'm not very far into this. And these are all the different ways that you can do this. So these are all the options of how the variable can be changed. You can change it when the user does something. You can change it when any kind of control object on the screen does something. You can change it when at a particular time on the timeline. You can change it when the timeline starts, when the timeline ends. There are a number of different ways to change the variable once it has been created. Now let's go back and take a look at the third. The third and exciting type of variable is number, which is exactly what it is. It allows you to enter a number and also manipulate numbers. So in this case, we're going to add 5 to whatever we see over here. Every time we hit the button, we just add 5 to it. Click that to reset, and then we can start over again, 5, 10, 15, 20. Let's take a look at how that works. We click the number, and we see that here again, this is the name of the variable number. And over here, we have a button, and up here, we have a trigger associated to that button. So I'll click the little pencil here. Do what? Adjust the variable to add 5 with what? The variable number when the user clicks the number 5 button. And then the other reset button is do what? Adjust the variable to the value 0 with what? The variable number. See, these are all my variables here. When the user clicks the reset button. So let's do a click along here to, Kevin, are you clicking along with us? Are you absorbing?
Yeah, I have it open here on my other computer.
Okay, good. Well, let's create another slide here in the upper left-hand corner. We'll click a new slide, and this time we will go to Insert, create a label here. In the middle, we have a text box, and let's just type in desired salary. And we'll create the variable, click on the little X up here, click the green plus and type in salary. ARY, and turn this into a number and give it a default value of 0. Click OK, click OK. And how do we let the learner enter a value? Go up to the Insert menu, go over here to the end where it says Input. This time at the bottom, data entry, we're going to use a number. Click and drag here. We will call this down here on the timeline. We'll give it a meaningful name, salary entry. Salary entry box. X can't quite read that whole thing, so you're able to, if you select that little thingy there, you can bring that out to read a longer name. I'll click that, click it again so we have a solid border. Copy it, Control C, Control V, and let's just type in the name of the variable. So we have a % salary end. And now you'll see that it has created automatically for us, no additional cost, a trigger. Click the pencil. And this time we want to set the variable to salary. Click OK. And let's see if this works. We'll go up to preview this slide. Okay, desired salary. We'll put a 1 in there. An even million ought to do it. So that's 6 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'll click off that. And you see down here a salary of $1 million, which would help me get that condo in Maui, or at least make monthly payments. But on second thought, I probably also need furniture. So let's go here and create a little extra. I'll click and drag across these two, make a copy of them. Control C, Control V, pull that down here, change this label to additional. ADDITINAL. And then we will give this box a meaningful name, which is not salary box 1, but we will say additional entry box. And you'll see over here, click that. Storyline has automatically created a trigger for us. Let's take a look at the trigger. It says salary entry box 1. That's not very meaningful. What I really want is salary box, well, we don't have an additional variable here. So let's click the additional and call this additional amount. Additional T, and leave it with a default value of 0. So now we have a way to enter both of these numbers, and now we need to create a trigger that will add the two. So here we're going to adjust the variable. The variable is salary. And then we don't want to set that variable. What we want to do is add something to the variable. So we are going to add, and you have a option here. You can add a specific amount, or you can add the amount that's contained in a different variable. So let's choose variable, and the variable we are going to choose is the additional amount. So what we're doing here is we are adjusting salary by adding to it the amount in the additional amount variable when the object being the additional amount, loses focus. So, okay, let's see if all this works. I'll go up to preview, slide, enter my meager base salary, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's see, think about 22,000 ought to buy a couple of chairs for me. Click off that and you'll see the variable is now showing 1,022,000. Any questions about how we got there? Does that all make sense? Okay,
I really like that first example that you showed with adding five, because what I've found that I use number variables for most is when I have games and I want to display a score for the user. So instead of clicking add 5, they click, the correct answer. And then by clicking that button, it adds to their score, or it doesn't.
Let's jump ahead here. Questions. Okay, here's a true or false question. And you'll see the learner has 0 of 24 points needed to pass. Let's take a look at how that is done. We go into this, we go down to question, and we see there is a variable results.score points bracketed with the percent things. We'll go over to the X box and find results.score. We don't see results.score. Why wouldn't we see results.score on this list?
I'm gonna take the kid to get the shoes.
That is because this is a built-in variable. That this is part of the variables that the system itself creates. So they're in alphabetical order for you. Okay. Down here you see results passed. That is the percent you need, the learner needs to pass the quiz, or you can think in terms of points. And here results score, this is what the learner is actually earning with each time they do this. Let's go back to see how this works. Okay, I'm clicking true. Watch this change when I click submit. Now the variable has changed to 10. Let's click true again. And now we see that variable has jumped up to 20. And now just to be contrary, I'll click false, and it tells me that I have the wrong thing. And now it shows me the results. My score is that percent and that many points, and I needed 80% and 24 points to pass. I don't encourage you to use this level of feedback for your actual learners, but that's how I feel if I didn't pass this. So let's do this one more time. True. See, that's 10, true again, we have 20, true again. And let's take a look at this screen. Go into my storyline. And here we see this slide just uses the built-in variables. You bracket results.score percent with the percentage signs, and that looks like that. That's what the learner sees. These are the variables that have kept score. These are variables that you, the designer, set when you set up the quiz to begin with. But that's another workshop. Okay, I have 10 minutes left here. Let me go through a couple more examples here. Here you see a slide with two variables. You have down here on the bottom, the true false variable named selection made equals false. We also have a text variable called vacation season, and it is empty at the moment. Let's see what happens when this variable selection made is false. I'm going to click next, and look what happens. We get a nag message there telling us that we need to make a selection. So how does that work? Go in here, go there, go back up to select season, and you'll see there is a layer here. This layer shows the nag message, and then on the base layer, you see we have a trigger for the next button. What's going on here? You see do what, show layer, what, no selection, when the user clicks next, and this is the secret sauce here, if the selection made value is false. So as long as that remains false, every time you click next, nothing happens. But when you select either one of these, and you see now that we've clicked one of these, the selection appears down here, summer or spring. Now the selection is true. We selected summer, so when we click next, we see summer clothes. Click next again, we see summer gear. If we go back and select winter, variable changes to winter. So every time you click next, the computer is told show winter clothes, show winter gear.
What if you click that change season button, John?
That takes you right back to this slide here. So you can go back and forth. So this is similar to what Kevin was asking earlier. Once you set up the variable, does the user have an opportunity to change it? And here is how that opportunity, or this is one way that opportunity can be provided. Just take them back to the decision thing here to get one or the other. Any questions about that? Okay, well, I have pretty much run the gamut here in terms of what I have available. Let me ask, did this work? I plan to do this next month. Was this at I noticed a number of you were more intermediate users. Was this a value to you nonetheless, or do we still have people logged on here?
Oh, we still got plenty of people logged on. So
Okay.
if you want to just go ahead and open your mic up if you have anything to say.
Huh?
Yeah.
It's been hard today, so I think.
You can wait.
Yeah.
I have a question about a design, like planning these sorts of interactions and variables, and like on a design document or storyboard prior to getting into the development. I mean, what kind of tools do you use to design for these sorts of interactions so that they come across on a paper form for review prior to development?
I pretty much, since I'm a one-man shop, I kind of make this up as I go along. But you have a very good question. It would make a lot more sense to have it worked out on paper before you go ahead. The way I would suggest doing that is kind of sort of create exactly what you're seeing here. So you would have a list of, select all your variables here and type, and then over here you could have a number of different columns here showing the different selections. So say in your avatar, avatar 1 type is a text, and then you can have a number of consequences here. Over here, type of vehicle, type of background, type of tools, type of clothing, and each column would show what selection would be made depending on that avatar changing something in the in the variable. Does that make sense to you? So you have,
Yeah, I could see how you could do something like that.
okay. And that way, using a spreadsheet, you can have as many different things that one variable changes in the situation I was trying to set up there. You might have for a avatar, different clothing, different tools, different location, different language, a number of different ways to do that. Well, let me, in the last few minutes here, are there any suggestions? I am anticipating in the future, next month, talking in more depth about triggers, and then October talking more about layers, and then in November getting into the player, talking about different things that can be done with that. Does that sound like a good way to proceed with this? I will take.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
No news is good news. Does this type of format work for people? I can come in with a prepared presentation and then go off into whatever, use that as a point of departure and discuss things. And another question. Don't know how useful this was for people who are at an intermediate stage. Would it be, you can type this in the chat window if you prefer to. Would you like to see two different versions of this? Have a beginner version as well as an intermediate version? Does that make sense to anybody? Let me see if I can open my chat window here. See chat. Oh, there we go. Yes, that would be helpful. We have about 15 minutes left. Okay. Any other discussion on whether it would be good to have a beginner and intermediate? Storyline is one like most software designed for professional use. It has a learning curve that just goes to infinity and beyond. I don't think anybody knows everything about this, even the people who develop it.
I'd like to see a kind of a review of, or a critique of other storyline projects. It's like, because we see a lot of storyline projects or e-learning projects, and sometimes I'm scratching my head like, oh, how do they do that? And deconstruct some projects to find out, maybe take an advanced project, say this is how they did it, or this is how you would do this sort of thing. That would be really helpful for me. I don't know about anybody else.
Okay, well, I have a whole bunch of them. Would anyone else volunteer to let us take your, or present what you have? I'd be happy to share the stage here. Okay, well, next, that would probably be good for both the beginner and intermediate. So next month, I'll think along those lines. Two different versions of this. We will explore triggers on both. Okay, so we're running out of time here. Thank you all very much for joining us.
And everybody, just FYI, the next workshop will be on the 14th September. So go ahead and check out our calendar. And I am going to post the recording straight to our YouTube channel. So you can go to our YouTube channel, the ATD San Diego YouTube site, and you can go ahead and click and take a view of the recording and share it.
Tom, thank you very much for your help. Certainly appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, gentlemen.
Y'all have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.